the General Motors Hour. General Motors Holden, through the Macquarie Network and cooperating stations in all states, present Young Timothy, starring Diana Perryman and Nigel Lovell. This is John Dease introducing our play. The newly created knight, Sir Richard Patterson, seemed to have most things to make him happy. A successful business, a decorative, even if not an affectionate wife, Diana, and an only son, Timothy. All his success would be handed on to Timothy, so thought Sir Richard, until Timothy himself took a desperate hand in affairs. In this moving drama, we star Nigel Lovell as Sir Richard Patterson and Diana Perryman as his wife. The play will be produced by Harry Harper. Ladies and gentlemen, Act 1 of the General Motors Hour production of Young Timothy.
Millie, dear, do have another brandy.
Oh, no, thanks, Di. Had enough. Thought I was through with the reception. Can't understand how I've managed to carry on right into your own home.
You manage very nicely at all times.
Thanks. Oh, here comes Richard.
Come on, Henry. Let's get that drink.
Oh, I'm coming, Dick. I say, you two have settled in, haven't you?
You're slow, Henry. We beat you back by 5 minutes.
Richard, fix Henry a drink, dear.
Yes, of course.
I say, Di, bad luck about Timothy not being able to come tonight.
That stomach bug he picked up in Spain. Given him the devil ever since. Here's yours, Henry.
Oh, thanks, man.
How old's Timothy now?
18.
Nice boy. Oh, I wish my son were more like him. Roger's always so dirty.
Well, he's learning his job in the right way, Millie, in the workshops. Roger's got a great future in front of him. Wonderful technical brain.
I don't see any point in spending all that money and sending him to university for him to come back and be dirty all the time.
Well, that's the way it's going to be with Timothy. University in October and then start at the bottom, the same as we all do.
May I cut in, Dickie, old man? I have something to say.
Oh, Henry, dear, you're not going to make another speech.
If you please, Millie. Now, the ordinary man reading his newspaper will have read the name of Richard Patterson in the birthday honors. And they may well say, who's he that he deserves to be honored by our beloved Queen? But they should be grateful that he and his like live and breed. I propose a toast.
You can't, dear. I feel sick.
Millie, you don't.
Yes, Di, I do. I must go home.
Oh, dear, just when we were going to have a lovely party all by ourselves.
Henry, I want to go home.
Yes, dear.
Can I help?
No, thanks. I know how to look after her. Good night.
Good night, Henry. Millie should never touch the stuff at all.
It has been rather a mixture tonight. Were you expecting it?
What?
The knighthood, of course.
Yes, Diana, I was expecting it.
You never told me.
You weren't here.
Oh, no, I wasn't, was I?
Are you pleased about it?
Are you?
Yes. When are you going back to France?
Oh, in about a week if I can get a plane. It's a pity to waste the flat.
It costs me enough.
Prestige can be a very expensive luxury.
I've no complaints.
I think I'll go upstairs. I'm tired.
I must say I'm annoyed about Timothy. I think he might have put on a show and put in an appearance tonight. Barry could come all the way up from London, but Timothy couldn't even cure himself of a stomachache.
I quite agree, Richard. It was embarrassing. Everybody, simply everybody being there.
It was humiliating.
Well, he's your son.
And yours.
Yes, so he is.
I'll discuss it with him in the morning. He'd better have a more reasonable excuse than a stomachache.
Morning, Mrs. Davenport.
Morning, Connie. Haven't had time.
Oh, it says here, civic reception to honor city's new knight. My Arthur doesn't agree with it.
And why?
He says he doesn't think it's right. He should pay rates to feed the likes of him upstairs.
One's got to take your Arthur with a pinch of salt.
He's got principles as my Arthur, and naming no names, that's something some people I know could do with. What's the tray for?
Timothy. Thought I'd let him have an extra half hour. Not being used to late nights like the others.
Oh. Are they up yet?
Yes, they're on the move.
Have you seen her yet to speak to?
Saw her last night.
Did she say anything?
What did she have to say?
If they enjoyed themselves at the reception.
She said they'd had a good time. Oh, there's a bell indicator. Who is it?
Front door. Who can it be at this time of the morning? Do you want me to take the tray up?
No, you see who that is. Any letters for Timothy?
Are there ever? Oh, Lord, there go them bells again. Who is it this time? Oh, it's her.
Don't forget the front door.
I can't be in two places at once. All right, my lady, you just have to wait. The front door comes first as far as I'm concerned. You can ring that thing off the blooming wall. Very sorry to keep you waiting, my lady, but just before you rang, the front door rang. A gentleman come to see Sir Richard.
Connie.
Yes, my lady.
Oh, please don't call me my lady. It's so on me.
I wouldn't say that, ma'am. Oh, some letters for you, ma'am.
Oh, yes, thank you. I was ringing for the mail. Who did you say came to see my husband?
A gentleman, ma'am. Probably somebody from the works. Is there anything in the papers, the London papers, I mean? The local's very nice.
I'm afraid they've ignored us.
Oh, what a shame.
Yes, it is rather. The publicity is good for business. Well, not that I know much about it when I'm away so much.
Ah, yes, ma'am. It must be nice down in France, ma'am.
One shouldn't have to live anywhere else.
I'm afraid I shall never be able to get there.
Of course, you've 2 children, haven't you?
Yes, ma'am. That's why I come out to work. My husband does quite nicely, but we'd like them to have a bit more than we had at their age.
They must love you very much.
Yes, ma'am. I think they do.
Excuse me, my lady. What is it, Mrs. Davenport? I'd like to speak to you privately, my lady.
I'm off anyway. I'll bring up your coffee and fruit, ma'am.
Oh, thanks, Connie. Now, Mrs. Davenport, what is it you want?
It's Mr. Timothy, ma'am.
Timothy?
His bed's not been slept in.
Oh, I see. Well, he might have told someone he was going to stay out all night.
He must have come home and gone out again, because his dinner suit's all of a heap on the bed, as if he'd taken it off in a hurry.
What did he change into?
His old flannels and sports coat. Oh, I don't like to say it, ma'am, but don't you think there could have been an accident? I mean, it's not like Mr. Timothy.
Oh, but the hospitals or somebody would have let us know by now. Now, look, don't look so worried. He's not a child. He's 18. He could have gone anywhere.
But he should have rung by now, ma'am. It's after 10.
He must have stayed the night with some of his friends. Has he a telephone book or something?
Oh, yes, ma'am. He's got one in his room.
Well, bring it in here, will you? And let's see if we can find him.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello? Miss Proctor, please. No, I can't hold on. Can you interrupt her call, please? I'm sorry, but this is important. This is Lady Patterson speaking. Oh, Miss Proctor, look, I'm really terribly sorry to be so impatient, but have you seen my husband this morning? Will you see if you can find him and ask him to ring me back? I hope not, Miss Proctor, but I am rather worried. Goodbye.
Here's your coffee and fruit, ma'am.
Oh, just put them down there, Connie.
Yes, ma'am.
Connie, about the gentleman who came to see my husband this morning, did you open the door to him?
Yes, ma'am.
Who did he ask for exactly?
Why, Sir Richard.
Are you sure he just said that? Sir Richard, not Sir Richard Patterson?
Oh, well...
Well, now, Connie, everybody at the works calls Sir Richard Sir Richard. Nobody thinks of calling him Sir Richard Patterson. Now, if anybody called from the works, they would simply ask for Sir Richard.
Oh, this gentleman asked for Sir Richard Patterson.
Thank you, Connie. Oh. Hello? Yes, Miss Proctor. Hold on, please. Connie?
Yes, ma'am.
Have a look and see which car Sir Richard took, will you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Miss Proctor. Are you sure? Are you sure nobody's seen him?
Ma'am.
Just a moment, Miss Proctor. Yes, Connie.
I could see from the windows there, ma'am. Both the garages are still locked.
Oh, thank you, that's all.
Very good, ma'am.
Miss Proctor, Sir Richard has taken neither of the cars. Now, can you phone through and find out if one of the works cars came up here? Thank you.
Mom,
Yes, Mrs. Davenport.
found an address book and a telephone book.
Thank you. Really, this is too silly. If there'd been an accident, Sir Richard would have told me at once. Doesn't seem to be very popular. Peter who? I don't know any Peter. Market 5167.
I know whose that number is, Mom.
You do?
It's a nephew of mine. He's my sister's boy. He came one day and they met. Mr. Timothy and he sort of chummed up. He never called it a house, not proper, if you know what I mean. That I wouldn't allow. Oh, I told them it was all wrong, them being friends. But they told me I was old-fashioned, Victorian. Oh, well, I suppose I am.
Where can I speak to him? At this number?
Yes, Mom. It's where he works. They're not on the phone at home. Oh, you won't be angry with him, will you, Mom?
Now, why should I be angry with a friend of Timothy's?
Well, he's a bit wild in some of his ideas. Nice enough lad, but... Oh, he's young.
Oh, who do I ask for?
Mr. Gilman. Don't be angry with him.
Oh, I'm sorry to trouble you, but can I speak to Mr. Gilman? Good morning. This is Lady Patterson. I believe you've been friendly with my son. I didn't say there was anything wrong in it. Your aunt and I have been friends for 20 years. If you and Timothy can do as well, you'd have reason to be proud of yourselves. Now, if you could just tell me if you saw Timothy last night. Thank you. That's all I want to know. He's not a very blissful young man, is he?
He is a little difficult, Mom.
He says he's not seen Timothy for a day or two. Oh. Hello? Oh, yes, Miss Proctor.
Diane, give that to me, will you?
Hold on, Miss Proctor. Why, Richard, you're here.
Give me that phone, please. Hello, Miss Proctor? Sir Richard. I want you to get down here as quickly as possible. Take one of the cars and get Dora to ring Mrs. Glover. Yes, Mrs. Glover. She'll probably still be in bed. Get her out of it. I want her here as well. Thank you, Miss Proctor. Oh, and my solicitor, Kenneth Massey. Tell him to come. Mrs. Davenport, I might want you in a moment. Wait outside, will you?
Yes, sir.
Richard, what's happened? Why have you asked Millie Glover to come here, and Miss Proctor and Kenneth? And where have you been? And who was that man who called here this morning?
One moment. Timothy came to your room last night.
Yes.
What time?
But 7. 15:15, maybe. I don't know exactly. I was dressing.
He said he wasn't well.
Yes.
And what did you say to him?
Oh, I told him to take something and lie down and follow on when he felt better.
I think you're lying.
Richard, what is all this? What's happened?
Why did Timothy come to your room last night?
I told you. He said he felt ill.
Anything else?
He did say something about wanting to talk to me, I think.
About what?
Well, I don't know. I didn't ask him.
Why not?
I was dressing.
Was that more important than talking to your own son?
I was dressing to go to an important dinner given to honor you.
What did you say to him?
Oh, I said we'd have all the time in the world to talk in the morning. Now, Richard, will you please tell me what's happened? It is my son you're talking about.
Was he dressed?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Well, of course I'm sure. Richard, please.
He told you he was ill?
Yes.
Mrs. Davenport. Mrs. Davenport?
Yes, sir.
Come here, please.
Yes, sir.
When you came into my room this morning, you said you were pleased we enjoyed ourselves last night.
Yes, sir.
You said you were especially pleased for Mr. Timothy's sake.
Did I, sir?
You weren't expecting Timothy to go to the reception last night, were you?
Well,
Was it because he was ill?
ill, sir? There's nothing wrong with Mr. Timothy when he was talking to me in the kitchen at 7 o'clock.
What was he doing in the kitchen?
He just came down for a talk.
Did he often come down for a talk?
Sometimes, sir.
Richard, you're talking about Timothy as if...
Diana, please. Was he dressed when he came down to see you?
Yes, sir.
What did he have to say to you?
Nothing much, sir.
What did he have to say to you, Mrs. Davenport?
He said he didn't want to go to the reception.
Why?
I don't know, sir. He didn't say.
Richard, please.
What did you say to him?
I told him he'd enjoy himself once he got there.
And?
He said he'd hate every minute of it.
And then?
He said he was going to talk to his mother about it.
Thank you, Mrs. Davenport.
Excuse me, sir. Is there anything wrong?
Thank you, Mrs. Davenport.
Yes.
Richard, will you please tell me what's happened?
That's what I'm asking you, Diana. I'm asking you what happened when Timothy came to your room last night.
I've told you. He said he felt ill.
I don't believe you.
Will you tell me what's happened?
I don't know. I wish to heaven I did. He was dressed when you were talking to him.
I told you he was.
Will you please tell me why he left your room, went to his own, took off his dinner suit and put on an old pair of flannels and a sports coat?
How do you know he did?
Because I've seen him.
Where? Where?
In the public mortuary.
And so ends Act 1 of our play. No cause or organization remains completely at a standstill. Either it progresses or it moves downhill. In the case of General Motors Holden's, the story is one of constant growth and development. Development dramatically accelerated by the production 10 years ago of Australia's own car, Holden. Brilliant initial design, plus combined American know-how and Australian workmanship, produced Holden, a car eminently suited to Australian conditions. Demand was immediate and sustained. In fact, it has snowballed with each successive year. This degree of Holden acceptance has been to some extent responsible for the series of expansion programs undertaken by General Motors Holden since the war. The company's annual report for 1958, published recently, comments particularly on the fifth of these expansion programs. This was announced in March last year and is estimated to cost about £9 million. Its objective is to increase the rate of Holden production to an estimated 125,000 vehicles a year. At the same time, it will provide facilities for the assembly of 22,000 Vauxhall, Chevrolet, and Pontiac passenger cars and Bedford commercial vehicles. Work is well underway. For example, the first section of an entirely new plant at Elizabeth, 17 miles north of Adelaide, will soon begin production. When completed, this £9 million project will bring General Motors Holden's post-war expenditure on expansion to £58 million. Now Act 2 of the General Motors R production of Young Timothy.
You feel better now, Diana?
Yes.
Then we can go on with this talk. I want to know the truth. The truth about last night.
What happened?
Timothy's been found drowned. The police believe he committed suicide.
Suicide? When do they say it happened?
About 12:30, as far as they can tell. Why's he done it? Why? What did he have to say to you last night? Why didn't he want to come to the reception last night? Why are you lying about his being ill?
Oh, Richard, show a little feeling. Leave me alone for a while.
May I come in?
Oh, yes, Miss Proctor.
I'm afraid I found a lot of reporters on the doorstep. I find it difficult to believe what they're saying.
What's it all got to do with the press?
It's your son, Sir Richard. What would you like me to tell them?
Nothing. I'll see them myself. You stay and talk to my wife.
I can't say how sorry I am, Lady Patterson.
Thank you.
Mrs. Glover's coming over as soon as she's dressed.
Millie? But what can she do? I don't know.
It was kind of Sir Richard to think you might need your friend.
Yes, it was kind of him. He's a very kind man, isn't he?
It's a very great shock.
18. Just 18.
Oh, the police must be wrong, surely, when they say he took his own life. He was one of the most even-tempered, balanced boys I know. And if ever a young man had everything to live for...
Miss Proctor, please.
I'm sorry. I know exactly how you must feel. And I know there's nothing anybody can do. Nothing. The solution The real solution lies in oneself, I know. Have you lost somebody you love very much? Yes. Somebody I loved very much. And learning to accept it, Lady Patterson. Just that. An acceptance of what has happened. And how does one learn to accept the fact that one's son, one's only son, is dead?
Miss Proctor.
Oh, yes, Sir Richard?
There's likely to be a lot of telephone calls. We can't keep it out of the press, so if you'd take over the morning room.
Of course, Sir Richard.
As far as you know, there's been an accident. There's to be an inquest. They can have all their news then.
An inquest?
And keep in touch with the office. If there's anything that needs my attention, I'll have to deal with it.
Yes, Sir Richard. Richard, please, now can I talk to you?
Just a moment, Diana. Miss Proctor, will you ring and see what's keeping Kenneth?
Yes, sir.
And you better tell Mrs. Davenport and Connie. They'll have to know sooner or later.
Yes, sir.
Now, Diana.
Do you realize you've told me nothing except that he's been found?
I know little else myself at the moment.
But where, Richard? How? It was an accident, wasn't it? An accident?
It's difficult to see how he could have fallen accidentally from a bridge with a stone parapet 6 feet high. He jumped deliberately.
No, Richard, no. I don't believe it. I refuse to believe it.
What happened when he came to your room last
You're
night?
asking me questions I want to know, too. I want to know what's happened and why.
I'm sorry, but I've got to answer questions to the police. Questions to which there seems no answer. They've given me a breathing space, but they'll be here before the morning's out, and you know something. If you won't tell me, you'll have to tell Kenneth.
I know nothing, nothing.
Timothy wasn't ill last night. That was an excuse you made up. What did he want to talk to you about?
I don't know.
Was he in trouble with any girl?
I don't know.
You do know.
There was no girl.
How do you know?
Because if there was anything like that, Timothy would have faced it. He was neither dishonest nor a coward.
Oh, where was he last night? Where did he go? Who was he with?
I don't know. When Mrs. Davenport told me this morning that his room wasn't slept in, I even went through a telephone book of his to try and find someone he might have stayed the night with.
And did you?
No, no, no. Oh, Richard, what good can all this do? If he really is dead, nothing else matters.
A great deal matters. I've given my son everything I could. The only thing I can do now is to see that he's buried with as little shame as possible.
Is it me you're blaming? I said, is it me you're blaming? Excuse me, Sir Richard.
Yes, Miss Proctor.
Mrs. Glover is here.
Oh, ask her to come in.
Yes, sir. In here, Mrs. Glover.
Thank you. Oh, Di, this is something I can't believe.
It's true, Millie. When did they find him?
12:30 this morning.
What can I do? What can I say? Oh, how useless one is at a time like this. Di, you look ill. Have you called a doctor for her, Richard?
It's all right, Millie. Oh, Millie, why did he? I've got to know why.
How did it happen, Richard?
The police believe he took his own life.
Then the police are fools. Timothy? What absolute nonsense.
If only you could be right.
But, my dear, what possible reason could Timothy have for taking his own life? Last night of all nights, his father knighted for the service of his country.
I know, it doesn't make sense. I was talking to him about it, too.
You were? When?
Last night, of course.
What did you say to him?
Nothing you can't read in this morning's papers.
I'd like to know.
Tell her, Richard. If somebody you love is taken from you, you cling to their last few hours. You want to know everything they thought and did.
Very well. I came in from the office at about 6. Came in here for a drink. Timothy was sitting at the piano. You know the way he was always tinkling at the thing.
Yes?
Well, I was glad of the opportunity to have a chat with him. Timothy and I have never been like Henry and your son, really. Those two are friends. Anyway, last night was a pretty big night for me, and I was proud, and I wanted Timothy to share that pride. I talked about how my grandfather started with a little shed and a few tools repairing bicycles, and then how he started making them. All with no education, mind you. How he built his first big factory. How he suffered in the slumps of the 20s and the 30s. And how you and I have worked, Diana, to Create a solid business so there'll be no misery and no unemployment in this town, at least. I told him how proud I was to have a son who was going to carry on.
And what did he have to say?
Nothing that I can recall. Should he have done? Anyway, it was nothing he didn't know.
He did go straight down to the kitchen and tell Mrs. Davenport he didn't want to go to your reception.
If he had anything to say, why didn't he say it to me there and then?
Did you give him the opportunity?
Did you give him the opportunity when he said he wanted to talk to you?
Well, if he was ill, he wouldn't go to the reception.
He wasn't ill. Not when he was talking to me and Mrs. Davenport.
When he came to my room, he complained of not feeling well.
A sudden attack of nerves,
Well, then
perhaps.
why didn't he tell me or Mrs. Davenport? And could it have been an attack of nerves that made him change into old sports clothes?
Well, that's possible. If he was feeling ill, he would change into something more comfortable.
Well, I hadn't thought of that.
He changed, didn't he?
Yes, he was dressed when he was talking to me and Diana.
Is it possible he was making excuses when he said he was ill? A girl, perhaps, or a party of his own to go to?
Both of which were more important than a civic reception in my honor.
When you're 18, yes. Do you know of any girl, Di?
No.
I'd say it was a party. He had a bit too much to drink. Crossing the bridge on his way home, started to play the fool on that parapet and slipped.
And his friends walked off and left him?
They probably panicked.
At least it would mean he didn't wish to die.
If you're right, Millie, it's going to be difficult to make anybody come forward and talk, especially if they're likely to find themselves facing a charge of manslaughter, and I'd make sure they did.
I would forgive. I would forgive if I could know that he didn't do it.
I'll go and phone Roger.
Roger? What can he do?
Roger will know who was having parties last night. He always does.
Excuse me, Mum.
Yes?
Sir. Mum, is it possible to talk to you?
What is it?
Well,
Yes?
Oh, it's all right. I'm just going. I'll be back, Di.
thanks, Millie.
Well, Mrs. Proctor's just told us, Connie and me. I want to say first how upset we are. We can't believe it. Not Mr. Timothy.
Yes, Mrs. Davenport, what is it?
There's something I think you ought to know. This morning when I told you that Mr. Timothy's bed had not been slept in, and we tried to find out if he'd gone anywhere, well, I happened to mention it to Connie. She said he spent last night at their house.
At Connie's house? But that's ridiculous. You better send her up.
She's very nervous and rather frightened, sir.
Why?
Well, she thinks she might have done something wrong.
Well, that's something we don't know yet.
I'm sure she didn't mean any harm.
I'm sure she didn't, Mrs. Davenport.
Oh, thank you, Mum.
And tell Mrs. Glover not to bother about that phone call.
Yes, sir.
Diana, do you know anything about this?
I told you. I even went through his telephone book this morning.
Millie's wrong, you know.
About it being an accident?
Yes.
I know.
Is it our fault? Is it something we've done?
Is it my fault? Is it something I've done? That's what you really mean to say, isn't it?
Is that why you're hiding the truth from me?
I'm hiding nothing from you.
Something happened last night when Timothy came to see you. I know it did.
Nothing happened. I wish it had. He might be alive now.
What do you mean by that?
Nothing.
For 20-odd years we've been married, and there's one thing stood out about our relationship. We could always be honest with each other. That's something few people can say. Why are you being dishonest with me now?
Can I come in, Mum?
Oh, just a moment, Connie. Richard, let me talk to her alone.
Why?
Because it's my son, too. I know, Connie. I can talk to her. I can talk to her as a woman.
Connie, come here, please.
Richard, please.
What is it, sir?
I'm told my son spent last night at your house.
Yes, sir.
Had you asked him to come and see you?
Oh, no, sir. He just came.
Did he say why he had come?
Well, not exactly.
He must have given some reason.
He just said he didn't want to go to the reception.
Did he say why?
No, sir.
How long did he stay?
Until 11:30.
Had he been drinking?
Oh, no, sir.
Did you give him any drink?
That's something we never did, sir.
Did he say anything that made you think he was going to do a thing like this?
Oh, no, Mom. No.
My son came to visit you often.
Yes, sir.
How often?
Once or twice a week.
Why?
He just liked it, sir.
How did you spend your evenings?
We played cards sometimes, or the gramophone.
You've children of your own, haven't you?
Yes, sir, I've two.
How old are they?
I've got a boy of 16 and
what?
a girl, sir.
How old?
18, sir.
We're getting somewhere now, aren't we?
I don't follow you, sir.
Doesn't it strike you as being very strange that my son should prefer to spend his evenings at your home and not his own?
Yes, sir.
Was there anything between them?
Oh, no, sir. I mean...
You mean what?
I mean, she was very fond of him, but...
But what? Is she going to have a child?
Richard!
No, sir.
How can you be so positive?
Because I know my own daughter.
I thought I knew my son, and he's dead. How can you be positive? Have you talked to your daughter?
Richard, I will not allow you...
Answer me, Connie.
My daughter and I are friends. I know her. I know how she behaves.
My son left your house last night and killed himself. There must be some reason.
It isn't known to me.
Now, you listen to me.
That's enough, Richard. I won't listen to any more of this. Your arrogance, your interminable questions, your nasty suggestions. I want to talk to Connie alone.
I've not finished yet.
I insist, Richard.
Very well. But don't be too long about it.
Now, Connie, you have children of your own. Do try and understand what has happened to me and Sir Richard. We've got to know everything.
Please, Mum, don't ask me any more.
It's not only us. There's to be an inquest. Your evidence might be the most important of all because you or a member of your family might have been the last person to see him alive.
Oh, no,
Now,
no,
you've
Mum.
nothing to be afraid of, Connie. Now, have you?
Oh, please, Mum, don't ask me any more. I know nothing.
Did Timothy say anything that might make you think he had something on his mind other than not wanting to go to the reception?
No, Mum.
You're quite sure?
Yes, Mum.
Did he have anything to say about me, for instance?
Oh, no, he never had a word to say against you. Not you, never.
When he left you last night, did he seem quite happy?
Oh, yes. We made a bit of supper and then he...
Then what?
Oh, please don't ask me any more, Ma'am.
How did you and your family come to be friends with Timothy? Now, you can tell me that, surely.
I really don't know. It just sort of happened.
But how did it happen?
Well, whenever he came down to the kitchen, I always seemed to have a broom in my hand. Oh, it's silly, really, it is.
Please go on.
Well, he used to make up stories about what happened to me when I rode away on it. After all, he was only a boy, and he did like to laugh and joke.
Yes. Go on.
Well, about a year ago, we was having a birthday party for Patsy, my daughter. Mrs. Davenport was coming. It was just with her.
He'd been coming to see you for about a year.
Yes, Ma'am.
What was the bond between your family and Timothy?
I don't understand you, Ma'am.
What sort of things did you talk about?
Just ordinary things. Just ordinary things.
Oh, can I come in?
Yes, Millie, it's all right. Connie's rather upset because she might have been the last person to see Timothy alive.
I'm sorry, Mum. Really, I am.
Come with me, Connie. I'll make you a cup of tea.
Go with Mrs. Glover, Connie.
Thank you, Mum.
I'll look after her, Di.
I suppose I can come back now.
Yes, Richard.
Well, what did you find out?
She knows nothing other than what she's told you, except that he had supper and left about 11:30.
Really? And did he leave the house alone?
I suppose so.
Well, didn't you ask?
No.
No. It wouldn't occur to you to ask if Connie's daughter was with him.
Oh, Oh, you're in here, Miss Proctor.
Yes, Lady Patterson. Sir Richard said I could use this room as my office.
I see.
Is there anything I can do for you?
No, I just wanted to be alone for a while. Perhaps I can go into the garden. Is there any news of Kenneth Massey?
Yes, he's on his way over.
I'll be out here if anyone wants me.
Yes, Lady Patterson.
Timmy! Hey, Timmy!
What do you want?
Oh, nothing. It's all right.
You were calling Timothy.
It's all right. Some other time.
What do you want with him? Why don't you call at the house instead of standing out here?
It's nothing to worry about.
I want to know.
It's not important.
It is important. I want to know.
Well, just ask him if it's all right for tonight. Tell him my grandmother's dead. You'll know what you mean.
I'm afraid I can't tell him. He died this morning.
Timothy?
I'm Timothy's mother. Will you tell me why you wanted to see him? I promise you won't get into trouble.
There's no point in it. Not now.
I want to know, please.
He was paying me to...
He was what?
He was paying me to let him do my paper round. Only the nights I want to play cricket.
But why should Timothy have wanted to do your round? And why should he pay you for doing it?
He said...
Yes?
He said by helping me, he was doing something useful in the world.
I see.
I wanted the money. I'm trying to be a mechanic. He said people should be helped to become what they want to be. He said nobody helped him. He said his parents couldn't care less.
And so ends Act 2 of our play. And now here is the final act in the General Motors Hour production of Young Timothy.
Mr. Massey is here, sir.
Oh, ask him to come in, please.
Yes, sir. Go in, please, Mr. Massey.
Hello, Richard.
Kenneth. Sit down.
Why didn't you send for me when you first got the news? Dealing with this sort of thing is my job.
I wanted to find out the truth for myself.
Have you?
I found out this much, that everybody's trying to hide the truth from me.
Who, for instance?
Oh, Diana.
You're mistaken, surely.
Ever since this has happened, it seems she's hiding something from me and accusing me at the same time. What could I have done? Diana, Timothy, there's nothing I've ever refused them, ever.
Yes, I know.
Diana's led exactly the life she wanted to. She's got a flat at Warren-les-Pins. I allow her more money than the government does its members of parliament and pay for everything on top of that. If anybody's got any complaints, it's me. Diana should have kept a better control of him.
Timothy never struck me as a boy in need of control.
Why hasn't she had him in France with her? She usually does in the summer.
Well, he's 18, probably prefers his own friends now. You're being a bit hard on Diana. You've a lot to be grateful to her for, you know.
Oh, I'm not saying I haven't. Well, I've played my part, too. I've worked like a black. I've spared nothing. My whole life has been given to the firm. And it hurts, Ken. It hurts badly, this silent criticism.
What makes you think she's hiding something?
She said Timothy was ill last night, and I know he wasn't.
Anything else?
He told Mrs. Davenport he didn't want to go to the reception. Diana knows why, I swear it.
Well, I'll have a talk to her.
Another thing we've discovered is that Timothy was going around to Connie's twice a week, encouraged by Mrs. Davenport.
Well, young people strike up some pretty strange friendships, but they usually grow out of them as they mature.
Well, I know what I think. A wealthy young boy like Timothy, a working-class family, they knew which side their bread was going to be buttered if they could pull it off. I'll wager Connie's daughter has a lot to do with it. That's why Timothy was strung up last night and wanted to talk to Diana. They'd given him until last night to do something about it. He didn't want to marry the girl, went round there to fight it out, and then panicked. Young idiot. Why didn't he come to me?
What does the girl's mother say?
Oh, denies everything.
Richard, why question the servants before doing the obvious?
What?
Well, if you've been through his room, letters, diaries, that sort of thing.
Oh, I never thought about
Well,
it.
you should have done. If there is anything, you've got something to tackle the people with. Has Timothy any debts?
Hello, Kenneth.
Oh, hello, Diana. I was just asking Richard a few things I'll have to know.
Please continue.
Well, if you don't feel up to it...
Please.
He has no reason to have any debts. He had his own banking account.
Did he ever come to you for money, Diana?
No, never.
Where will his bank statements be, in his room?
He's got his own desk. They're probably in there.
Well, there may be gambling debts or something of that sort.
Inconceivable.
Excuse me, sir.
Oh, yes, Miss Proctor. What is it?
The London office is on the phone.
Oh. All right, I'll come.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, will you?
Yes, of course. Di, I don't have to tell you how deeply sorry I am.
There's nothing anybody can do.
Richard thinks you're hiding something from him.
I know.
Are you?
Yes?
Why?
You go on lying to a person about himself? Do you think after 20 years he's going to believe the truth now? I've done no more than most women do. Flattery, praise, tell him how wonderful he is, agree with everything he says so that I should be free to live my own life, because that's the only way I could find any sort of happiness.
Is that what Timothy talked to you about last night, Richard?
Yes. That and more.
What did he have to say?
Nothing that can help him now. Last night, perhaps.
I see. So you think if you listened to Timothy last night...
Not only listened, but acted.
Acted in what way?
In the way I wanted 2 years ago. Leave, Richard.
That's being unfair to Richard.
Is it?
You can't say your marriage has not been happy or successful. You've been luckier than most. You had your differences with Richard, but you both showed your common sense and saved your home for your children.
What a hypocrite you are, Kenneth. Because everything looks all right, because the appearances are kept up, everything is all right.
Diana, be honest. It's worked, hasn't it?
It worked for Timothy, didn't it?
Mom.
Yes, Mrs. Davenport.
It's my nephew, Mom. He's heard the news and he's come round. He wants to see you and Sir Richard.
Some other time, Mrs. Davenport. He didn't see Timothy yesterday.
Oh, thank you, Mom. There's nothing I can tell you. Really, there isn't.
What's this?
A nephew of Mrs. Davenport's. Timothy and he met.
Well, I'd like to see him.
But there's nothing he can
Show
tell you.
him in here, please.
Yes, sir.
First Connie and her tribe, and now Mrs. Davenport and hers. What's been going on?
My nephew, sir. Peter Gilman.
Oh, come in, young man.
Go along, Peter. Don't be frightened.
Who's frightened?
You've been friendly with my son, I believe.
I don't expect you to be pleased about that. It's a great disgrace for you, isn't it? For the son of the great Sir Richard Patterson to go out and drown himself. He had everything to live for. Fine house, clothes, servants, a car. Going up to university, too. A ready-made position at how many thousands a year? His father will be a lord before he's finished. Timothy would have been a lord. His sons would have been lords. And yet he goes out and kills himself. Doesn't make sense, does it?
If you have anything to tell us, let's have it and then get out.
If I'd been in his shoes, I'd have done exactly the same thing, only I've done it
Young
sooner.
man, you're going to get nowhere by being abusive or insulting. If you've anything to tell us, let's have it calmly and sensibly.
You know what this is?
It's a recording of some kind, isn't it?
Yes. Sort of Viennese waltz it is. A romantic streak in him, Timothy.
What do you mean?
He wrote this song, recorded on this. Composed a lot of music, as a matter of fact.
Did you know anything about this music of his, Di?
Oh, well, he mentioned something about it.
Why didn't he tell me?
I don't think you would have understood.
Young man, has this really got anything to do with what you've got to tell us?
Yes. You see, me and some of the boys have our own four-piece.
Four-piece what?
We play down the skiffle club.
Oh, a dance band, you mean?
You could call it that. Timothy showed us his pieces, and we liked them and played them and recorded one or two. Gave him a great kick. Said it was the first thing he could remember giving him any real pleasure. And one night, when our pianist was sick, Timothy played for him.
Diana, I suppose you know all about this as well.
No.
He used to play for us 2 and 3 times a week.
Was he playing last night?
No.
Well, then what's the point of all this?
Kenneth, please, I want to know everything this young man has to tell us.
I'll tell you, and more besides. I'll tell you something about our club, something that'll surprise you. We've got a code of honor.
How interesting.
Drinking taboo. No girls except the nice ones. And the money we make out of the club, we try and do some good with. Charity doesn't mean to us what it means to you, Lady Patterson, sitting very grandly on your committees because it keeps your name in the papers, holding your posh dances. And by the time you've paid yourself your expenses and drunk yourself silly out of the takings, there's nothing left for the people the money's supposed to go to.
Leave my wife out of
She was his mother, wasn't she?
Go on, please.
Our charity's human. We go round to the kids in the hospitals. We give them shows. We take them oranges and sweets. But you despise that, wouldn't you?
Get out.
Timothy enjoyed himself with us and hated being in his own home because he'd found we'd got something. A sense of values. A sense of human values.
Get out!
There's only one thing that matters to you in this world. Every penny you make is for one purpose and one purpose only. To show the world just how big Sir Richard Patterson is. And you're not very particular how you get it.
Get rid of him, Kenneth.
Anything you've got to say, you can say in my office.
Anything he's got to say, he can say right here and now.
I'm going to say what I've come to say. Timothy was my friend and he's dead.
He was my son. Don't forget that.
And it's because he was your son that he's dead.
I think this has gone far enough.
Let him have his say.
Diana?
Let him have it.
Timothy was condemned to a useless life. A life serving Sir Richard Patterson. It's better no life than a useless one.
Kenneth! Get rid of him.
Yes, very well. Come on, young man.
Right. I'll finish what I come to say.
You shouldn't have got him here in the first place.
Why did Timothy prefer the company of people like that? I can't understand it.
I can, Richard. I can understand. What he and Peter believed was right. You and I have learned that life doesn't work that way, but he was still right.
Is that what Timothy talked to you about last night?
Yes. He told me he loathed everything you stood for.
Why are you telling me now?
There was no point in telling you last night or this morning because you wouldn't have believed me. Perhaps now you will.
He wasn't ill then?
No. I lied to save having a scene with you. The same as I've done for years. Lies, lies, tell you how wonderful you were, agree with everything you say. It made life so much easier.
Are you trying to tell me that Timothy took his own life because of what I am?
He took his life because it would have been like mine, having to spend his days serving you.
What did you say to him last night?
The same as I've always done. But it was no use trying to argue with you about anything. He had to do exactly what I do, agree with everything you say, then please himself. But for last night, he should have put a face on things and come to the reception. I said we could have a long talk about everything in the morning.
Excuse me, sir.
Oh, yes?
Patsy Holmes would like to see you. Connie's daughter, sir.
Show her in.
Yes, sir.
Didn't I say in the first place there was a girl somewhere?
You're wrong. There was nothing between Timothy and this girl, I know. I just know.
Excuse me.
Come in, Patsy.
Thank you.
Well, what have you got to tell us?
When I heard the news about Timothy, I came to see my mother. She was fond of Timothy. But that's not the only thing she's upset about. She's upset because you've been trying to make her say things she doesn't want to say.
Such as?
I'm not afraid like my mother. I can tell you what she couldn't.
And what couldn't she tell us?
I loved Timothy. I loved him very much.
Are you going to have a child?
No.
Were you hoping to marry?
No. Wouldn't have been possible, would it? Even if Timothy had loved me.
But you loved him?
Yes.
But just why have you come to see us?
Because I don't want Timothy's name put to shame. I want people to know that it wasn't his fault he did what he did. Timothy said he'd found something in our house. He said life had some meaning for us. He didn't want to go to university. He really didn't know what he wanted. But he was very good with his music. He wasn't up to professional standard, but I never used to tell him that.
I'm surprised.
I thought if I could make him feel he was good at music, then it'd help him to think he'd be good at other things. My mother used to say the trouble was nobody ever tried to find out what he could do and encourage him.
Timothy's future was taken care of.
Yes, exactly.
What we really want to find out is who was the last person to speak to him?
I was.
Where?
On the bridge. I walked part of the way home with him. We stopped there for a long time. Just talking.
What about?
Everything. Things like I've just told you.
No, there was something else, wasn't there?
In a way. He was going on about being no good at anything. I said it was silly to talk like that. And perhaps if he left home for a while, it'd give him a chance to find out what he could do. He said he never would be any good because his background was rotten.
But why?
I tried to talk him out of it. I said people were what they made themselves. But he said he was trapped. He didn't want to become what his father is. He said he worshipped his mother. He'd understood when she said it was for his father's sake that she was always going to cocktail parties and sitting on committees and things. But he discovered that wasn't the real reason she'd so little time for him.
Well, what was the reason?
Well, the first reason was that she enjoyed all that sort of thing. And the second was that he telephoned her in France one late evening about a week ago.
He telephoned when?
He said he wanted to go to France to talk to her about himself. He said it was easy for her to always say that all he had to do was agree with everything his father said and then please himself. But he couldn't please himself because his father had his life planned out.
I didn't receive any telephone call.
You didn't answer the phone yourself.
When did he phone?
Tuesday night.
Tuesday. Oh, no.
He didn't want to believe it. And he tried to talk to her about it last night, Sir Richard, but he knew by the way she was dressing she was drinking.
I said I found her sitting at a ball without a glass in my hand.
He said she was lying, that she enjoyed that sort of life. It was her life. He believed there was no hope for him.
But what's behind this telephone call?
You shall know from me.
I said things had seemed different in the daytime. I had to go. It was 12:30. I made him promise to meet me this afternoon. I kissed him and went. He used to always stand and wave until just before I was out of sight.
Thank you, Patsy.
I suppose he must have stood there looking at the river, thinking. If he'd loved me and I'd been able to marry him, things might have been different. They might have been happy for both of us. All of us.
He was in love with that girl.
He was in love. Is that all you can say?
He was in love with that girl. He knew nothing could ever come of it, so he said nothing to her. I consider that to be rather fine. But it's heartbreaking that he couldn't enjoy a boy and girl romance the same as other young people.
How about this telephone call?
7 years ago, our marriage ceased to exist, except in name only. Need you ask any more?
I'd like to know.
Tuesday, we'd been to a party at Cannes. I was rather drunk. If I'd known, I'd have answered the phone myself, but we thought it was somebody who'd be making a nuisance of himself.
It's hard to remember that there was once a day when I loved you.
Did you ever? You married me because I could be useful to you, just as you were useful to me. What did my breeding mean without money? We'd served each other well, and we've paid for it.
I lived for myself when you ceased to care. And Timothy. I've wanted to be friends with him. I've tried, but I'd forgotten how to talk to people in that way. I didn't want to force him to join me at the works. I wanted it because I thought that we'd have something in common and become friends. He could have had anything. Become anything if he'd asked me.
You loved that boy, didn't you?
Yes.
I did love you once. That's all I can say. I loved you once.
What went wrong? What changed you?
I don't know. It just seemed as if one day it all ceased to be. I should have left you, but I stayed because I loved the life you could give me. And what did it all mean when it ended with a boy standing alone on a bridge, frightened of life?
I'd better go and tell Kenneth. Stop looking through Timothy's desk. It's useless now.
Die.
Oh, Millie. Millie, what have I done? What have I done to Richard and Timothy?
Go to Richard, Di.
Killed him, I killed him, Millie.
Go to Richard.
Too late.
He needs you.
A young life. Wasted.
Go to Richard, Di. Let some good come out of it. Then perhaps one day you'll be able to forgive yourself.
Oh, sorry, Mom. Didn't know you were still here.
What do you want, Mrs. Davenport?
I want to draw the curtains, Mum.
Why?
Out of respect, Mum.
Di, shall I go and tell Richard?
Would you, Millie?
At once, dear.
And so ends the General Motors R production of Young Timothy by Michael Voicey, adapted for radio by Ruth Pullan, in which you heard the following players. As Patsy, Wynne Nelson. Peter, John Ewart. Kenneth, Richard Davies. The youth, Keith Buckley. Miss Proctor, Marcia Hathaway. Mrs. Davenport, Myva Drummond. Connie, Lynn Murphy. Henry, Reginald Collins. Millie, Mary Clark. Our stars were Nigel Lovell as Sir Richard Patterson and Diana Perryman as his wife, Diana. The General Motors R is directed by Harry Harper, who produced tonight's play.